Well, the gun is not recovered. I don't believe that there's any threat to someone that there will be some sort of random act of violence.
Just like you enjoy playing the cross.
I enjoy what?
Playing cross? Playing
Playing
cross?
cross?
Being a society?
Well, it's 1:30, so we will be respectful of your time. Thank you all for coming. My name is Eric Fadden. I'm the Public Safety Director for the City of Plymouth. My name is spelled E-R-I-K. Last name is F-A-D-D-E-N. I'm going to be reading a brief statement here. This past Monday, November 14th, at approximately 6 p.m., Plymouth police officers responded to a report of a shooting in the parking lot of an apartment complex in the 9700 block of 37th Place here in Plymouth. Officers were nearby at the time of the call and arrived very quickly. Within minutes, they located a deceased 17-year-old male with an apparent gunshot wound inside of a vehicle. Before I speak about a few facts of this case that I can talk about, I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that a local family has lost a loved one. The victim's been identified by the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office as Yassine Johnson, 17 years old, from Albertville. Yassine's death is tragic and not something that I or any of our staff will ever forget. I want to send our deepest condolences to Yassine's family and his loved ones. On Monday evening, initial witness reports led our officers to believe that there were two suspects who fled the scene after the shooting occurred. Our officers and detectives have been working quite literally around the clock to determine what happened and quickly identified three people of interest. Yesterday afternoon, officers arrested one of those people, Luke Davin Williams, 18 years old, from the city, or in the city of Golden Valley, without incident. Mr. Williams was interviewed by detectives and booked at Hennepin County Jail for probable cause murder. I am asking for the public's help in locating the two other suspects. Our detectives have identified those two suspects, and we're going to put up their pictures here. Captain Reed can help me. I'm going to put those on the boards. First, Augustus Matthew Sirleaf. He goes by AJ, 19 years old, from Plymouth. And Hans Madave, 19 years old, from the city of New Hope. The firearm that was used in this homicide on Monday night has not been recovered yet. The investigation has been very time intensive, and all of our staff have been working around the clock since Monday evening to follow up on leads, tips, and uncover more details as to why this tragedy actually occurred. If anyone has any information about this case, I'm asking you to please call us. Our tip line is 763-509-5177. If you have any information as to the whereabouts of Mr. Sirleaf or Mr. Madave, I ask that you don't approach them, and please call 911. And lastly, I do need to reach out. If Mr. Sirleaf or Mr. Madave are watching this or watch this at a later time, I'm imploring you to please do the right thing and turn yourselves in to our officers immediately. That's all I have for details. I can stand for a few questions, but I just have to preface that this is a very active and ongoing investigation, so I may not be able to provide too many details.
What are the connections of the one arrested, the two you're seeking, and the victim to that arrest?
We still don't know at this point. We are, just due to the nature of this investigation that's ongoing, and the fact that we have not spoken with these two individuals, I guess we don't know all the facts that surround that.
Any of them live at that address?
No.
Are they acquainted? Do they go to school together? Do we know any relationship between the suspect and the victim?
At this point, I don't know.
Is the guy who was arrested being cooperative at all?
Yes.
Can you elaborate?
I can't at this point.
You said you identified the three suspects based on witnesses. I mean, were there a large number of witnesses, or what was the scene there?
So there were not a lot of witnesses, but there were a couple witnesses. We have pushed out our initial press release, our tip line. I think between witnesses and our tips, we haven't even probably had 10 tips, but the few tips that we have had have been very helpful for our detectives, and we've been able to work through just kind of the scene and what happened, following up before our officers really arrived and were able to figure out what happened. So, through that and through some of the witness statements, we were able to put together kind of a rough idea of who these people are. So I can't elaborate too much more than that at this point.
So did all three, were they in the same vehicle when they fled, or can you talk about how they left the scene?
Yeah, I can't talk about that in too much detail at this point.
Is there a message you have? These are young people in the prime of their lives, and now it just doesn't affect one family, it affects 4 families. Is there a message that you have?
Yeah, this is heartbreaking. This is the second time I've stood up at this podium in front of many of you and talked about these heartbreaking tragedies that, they're all senseless. But this is a little different for me. I think our officers, Yassine was 17 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. So there's a family that's, grieving right now and has a lot of questions. We have a lot of those same questions. There's a community and classmates and friends that, this isn't supposed to happen to anybody, let alone a kid. So it's tragedy. It's tragic. It really is.
Were you familiar with any of these names until this case happened?
I was not familiar with any of the names, but I don't want to speak for our 81 officers. I don't know if our department has had contact with any of them with the amount of information coming in, but they are not names that I recognize, and I've worked here for a long time. So,
is there a threat to the community? Are these guys still out there?
Well, the gun is not recovered. I don't believe that there's any threat to someone that there will be some sort of random act of violence. I don't think this was just a random 2 people were out for a walk or a drive and just happened to be caught, in the wrong place at the wrong time. But with that said, I wouldn't be completely honest if I was saying there's 0 threat to the public because we haven't recovered this firearm yet. But I'll just leave it at that at this point.
Any idea, did they all know each other prior? Were there something else brought them together in this location, or what was?
Yeah, just because the way the investigation's unfolding at this point, I can't get into details as to what we know or are still trying to figure out at this point.
And did this happen outside the home, inside the home?
It did occur outside. The victim was found inside of a vehicle.
Any calls to that house? Is this like a party house, a gathering place for meetings? Do we know that?
And I believe I might have not mentioned it in my statement here, but no, it was a parking lot of an apartment complex in the 9700 block of 37th Place here in Plymouth.
So do you know if it was that then was connected to any residents at that apartment complex, or was it just?
Yeah, I'm not able to discuss that at this point.
Was it somebody from the apartment who called 911?
We had witnesses from that. There's a number of apartment buildings in that area, and there we had a witness that was nearby that area that did call 911 and report the shooting. Yes.
Can you talk about the amount of police work that this took? This is pretty quick for you guys to come down and have these people together. Officers working together. Did you work with other law enforcement partners, or was it just strictly Bloomington Police and great police work?
Yes, so Plymouth Police, but no problem. Our officers, our detectives have done some outstanding work. We were assisted that night by the New Hope Police Department. The 9700 block of 37th Place is just on the other side of 169 from the city of New Hope. So a big thank you to them. The Hennepin County Sheriff's Office assisted their crime lab. And the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office obviously is assisting, and now we are, as we're working through the investigation, we're partnering with the Hennepin County Attorney's Office to really work through the nuances of the investigation and just making sure that there's no questions that they have later on. So it's best to work with everybody and partner, from the beginning. So.
Are you able to say anything about how we found this guy in Golden Valley, or?
I can't discuss that at this point.
Good police work.
That is a great answer. I'll give you credit for it next time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
People sleep peaceably in their beds at night because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf.